nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
And welcome into Purple Access, which, of course, Zolgad, Star Tribune sports columnist, and my good friend, former Vikings co-beat writer Chip Scoggins, executive producer Declan Goff. And we are in the midst, as we record this, at just after noon on Thursday. The NFL free agency period has now been open for approximately a day. The Vikings have made some moves, not a lot here. And Chip Scoggins, I feel like I have talked myself out about like what they're doing here, what's transpiring, what's not transpiring. I want to hear your thoughts, starting with the decision to extend Kirk Cousins by a year and essentially make him the Vikings starting quarterback for 2 more years. What are your thoughts on what we've seen so far? And what are your thoughts on where you think this is going?
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. It feels like they have competing agendas going on right now. On the one hand, we hear the owner saying they're going to be super competitive. Let's run it back, bring Cousins back. The roster's ready to win. On the other hand, we have reports from my colleague Ben Guessing that they're trying to trade Danielle Hunter. They're really not making any signature moves. It's more kind of secondary moves with free agency. So I don't know. I don't know really what it seems like they're trying to navigate the cap hell that Rick Spielman left them. And we saw today that Harrison Smith, I think they converted some of his money into assignment to get a little more flexibility there. So it's sort of baffling right now. Are they all in trying to win right now? Are they trying to reset with the roster? It's confusing, to be honest with you.
Oh, I agree completely. And I mean, that's been my question is what's the path? Like, what are you, because to me, when you commit to Kirk for, minimum 2 more years, right?
Yeah.
Like what I expected was that they would have essentially the contracts of the veteran players that needed to be redone quickly, and that they would go get Kirk a guard, a center, like finally give Kirk what Kirk needs, because we could debate Kirk, but which we can't debate is across the board, Cousins fan or no, you know exactly what Kirk needs. So that's where I keep coming away with or saying this. I am just very confused. And there are things, if at some point JC Treader is signed, okay, that makes more sense. But I think that you put it perfectly. I think it's the competing agendas phrase that I agree with the most. It feels like there's the Wilfs and the people that run the team saying Kirk has to come back because you're not going to improve on Kirk. And then it feels like Kwesi and his folks are like, okay, but we still, for our purposes, both from a cap standpoint and a personnel standpoint, want to move in a different direction eventually here. And I don't know that that's a good way to work when you basically have what appear to be competing philosophies. I think you need as cliche as this sounds, a united vision. And that doesn't seem like what we're seeing right now.
Well, no, because if you're going to be super competitive, then you're going to need to be able to fix the offensive line with the center and guard and make really significant changes to the defense, which they don't have the money. They're trying to figure out, they're basically scrounging under the couch to figure out where they can find money here because of all the dead money that Spielman pushed, to the back end, trying to win now with these contracts, that they're trying to navigate that while also being in this mandate of the ownership that you need to be super competitive. So it's, it really feels like they got 3 different things going on. I mean, that's what it feels like to me. And I don't know how you can fix the things that you need to fix by paying Cousins what they, what's his cap number now is what, 31 million this
Yeah,
year?
they brought it down by approximately 14.
14, yeah. So it's like,
but it's still
31
high.
but it's still, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's still,
it's not cheap.
and we've seen Harrison Smith redo his deal. Nothing yet on Thielen, nothing on Kendricks that we know of. And then by Sunday, you have to figure out the Danielle Hunter situation. And so, where's the money going to come from, Judd?
I don't know. I have no idea. And so let's talk about, and again, this is all fluid, subject to change quickly. But as we record this, I want to talk to you about the Hunter situation, because this one to me is in some ways baffling.
Yeah.
So he wasn't happy last spring, and he threatened to, and I think that they might have had a few of the off-season activities without him. And then the Vikings reached agreement on a long-term contract solution that we knew was going to have to be gone back into and readdressed right now. Yeah. That's perfect way to put it. So that's no surprise. But what is surprising is I thought until yesterday, quite frankly, that worst case that the Vikings could take the roster bonus that Danielle is due on the 5th day of the league year, which is Sunday, turn it into a signing bonus and subsequently spread it across 4 years, which would bring it down. I think that's possible, but it's not happening. Yeah. And now I guess I'm confused on both sides, including the Hunter side. If you knew that the possibility existed that you were going to get paid for 1 year, but you didn't like the rest of the contract, why didn't we hash this out back then? This feels like the worst possible time because it's stopping you. This feels like the worst time, Chip, from really both sides, to have this now rear its head and create what appears to me to be a roadblock from improving your team.
Yeah, and what we don't know is how does Hunter feel about, the scheme change, not having Andre Patterson here.
Yeah, that's
Minnesota, and just everything. Does he like living here? I mean, he seemed pretty. Last year, we thought, okay, maybe he wants to try something else, and then they kind of did this bridge deal to get him to right now, where they knew they're gonna have to figure this out. But what we don't know is how he views this scheme and how he fits in it. He may not want to play in a 3-4, right?
Doogie has said that he talked to Hunter's people, I believe, and that they said he's okay with it. Okay. But you're right about Patterson. Like there's a lot of things. The timing, in order to get this deal done last spring, the timing of what's transpiring now could not be worse.
No, and the thing is, that's talk about the competing agendas is, you're wanting to be super competitive and win now, and the roster you think just needed some tweaks. You're going to trade your best defensive player.
That's another thing. Yeah.
I mean, defense in, rush in. I was talking to somebody the other day about this.
Yep.
Is it the second most important position now in football?
It's way up there.
Or 2A with left tackle or tackle. Obviously quarterback's one, and then somebody might argue cornerback, but everybody's wanting to get that rush in now, and you have a guy who's doing things historically when he's healthy. And so I'm just, I'm baffled by what the holdup is. I thought we would have a resolution by this pretty quickly. Maybe they are trying to trade him. Maybe, but that doesn't speak to a team that wants to win right now and be super competitive.
This is why I'm so, for the 5th time, confused though. If I brought to you on Sunday afternoon before the Kirk thing got done, if I brought to you a list of Vikings players who I said, if I subtract them, like, how good is this team going to be? Atop that list, Jefferson for sure. Mm-hmm. Danielle for sure. Mm-hmm. My point is Kirk would be down that list a little bit. And so I would say if Danielle Hunter's gone, I'm probably not going to reinvest in Kirk right now, because I clearly, like, if just to be clear, if Danielle Hunter's not back, Chipper, look at this defense.
Oh, and it's
a nightmare.
Well, it's one of the worst defenses we saw. It was one of the worst defenses in the league without him. And the last couple of years, just the pass rush has not been there. And so where are you going to find that guy, that replacement. And so, I mean, to me, like if you're saying be super competitive, and that's the mandate from the ownership, you have Cousins as your quarterback, right? I mean, he's number one.
But I have to have Hunter too. Like I have to have him.
Correct. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it flies in the face of what they said they were going to do, and so
Correct.
and maybe they get it resolved here before Sunday. Maybe they're working on it. Who knows what?
But why are they? But why is this not? I don't understand why. Why wasn't this done by 2 p.m. Central Time yesterday? Like, in my opinion, if you want your team to be super competitive, you had to hit the ground running right now.
Yeah, and I trust Gessling's reporting that they're trying to trade him.
Oh, I totally trust that. Yeah.
I just don't know what the explanation is for that. I mean, and listen, for a couple years, Danielle outperformed his contract, correct?
Absolutely.
And he wanted to get
big
paid
time.
like one of the, and so, but now it's the picture is murky because the injuries. I mean, he's played what, 7 games? Is it
right?
2 years? And so, what is his camp looking for?
Right. And part of the problem now too is, and this is an issue for both sides. I believe Gessling completely. They're trying to trade him.
Mm-hmm.
But now with what's come out, guess what? The Vikings aren't getting the offers that they want. Like they probably want at least a first round pick, if not more, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you know that he's got the Vikings in a pickle. And so now you are like, this is the timing of everything that's transpiring now could not be worse for all sides.
Yeah.
And I just don't see how it gets, I don't see how it gets resolved now in a way that works because the top guys, a guard, for instance, are gone. They're just gone.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and Judd, what are they doing to improve this team? I mean, these,
hold on a second. You don't like Austin Schlottman?
Yes.
You don't know who Johnny Munt is?
Yeah, that's right.
If you don't know who they are, that's fine. But
yeah,
you call yourself a columnist.
That's a you problem.
I had Johnny Munt on my list, top 3.
That's right.
Blocking tight end.
I mean, signing Jordan Hicks, the linebacker, that makes sense, right? It's not a splash move, but it makes sense in the, it's a veteran linebacker that you can.
Harrison Phillips, the guy from Buffalo, is straight up a replacement for Pierce, though.
That's
not an improvement.
That's a swap, right?
That's you're cheaper.
Yeah, and younger probably is younger. I think he is.
Yes, I think he is.
You're cheaper, basically. It's a
correct.
You're probably thinking you're getting the same production, a run stopper. But what have you done to really significantly improve your offensive line? I mean, you got a backup from Denver.
Nothing.
So, and those guys are going on. But here's the thing, Judd. When you look at the money, those guys, the guards are getting, they don't have it. Right?
Well, no. And the problem is they didn't even put themselves in a position to come close to saying, hey, we're close.
It really feels like they're just going to run it back.
I know, but I don't know what to tell you. Like that is, I mean, Dex can attest. I've been talking about this with Phil and Declan for 2 days now. This is the thing is I get notes. Oh, it's only games don't start till September. Yeah, but this is when your roster's constructed.
Yeah, you don't construct your roster on
opening day.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I know this is where I'm at.
I thought it was going to be we talked about it a couple weeks ago. I didn't think it'd be a massive roster overhaul, but I thought it'd be more than this, right? I thought the first year would be a filling out, see what the rookies that they had last year, see what you have in them, bring in another draft class. But this, I thought there'd be more moves than this. I gotta be honest with you.
What is your thought on the Kirk extension and the no trade clause?
Well, I just think the no trade clause is ridiculous. When I listened to Mark Wilf that first day and knowing how I think they are, the ownership and maybe the team is terrified of a big step back. And so they looked at it and said, you know what? let's be super competitive. And if you're going to be super competitive, it ain't going to be with Kellen Mond, right?
Sure.
Probably.
Yes.
And it's not going to be with more than likely, if you drafted a rookie or if you find a, excuse me, a bridge quarterback somewhere. And so this probably seemed like the most logical result. I like that it wasn't 3 or 4 years; it's 2 years. It's not like you're wedded forever. But the money is a problem in terms of filling other needs.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about this, Judd. Think of the quarterbacks that the Wilfs have had and all the stuff that they've gone through at that position since they take on ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Drafted Tavares Jackson, drafted Christian Ponder, Donovan McNabb, Joe Webb, Josh Freeman. They saw Teddy's knee blow up. They get the trickle down from that. You give away a first round pick for Sam Bradford, who didn't. I wonder if there's just not scars and the fear of what they've seen and what has happened.
Right.
That they look at Cousins and say, you know what, he's a good quarterback. We can debate how good, but he's definitely a top 12, 13 quarterback. Some would say higher.
Right.
But I think they look at it and say, I think they're almost paralyzed by the fear of the unknown.
Then why fire? Here's what I don't get. And this goes beyond Kirk. Why did you fire Rick if you're going to run back Rick's team? And second of all, don't you hire new people? Because, I mean, there's no question one of the deficiencies of the 17 years that the Wilfs have owned this team has been what you just said, the inability of the Childress regime and then the Spielman Frazier and then Zimmer to find a quarterback. Like, to me, I thought the day that they did this, that they were empowering two new people who got it, including O'Connell, who is a former quarterback himself, to be in charge of finding that next guy. And it feels like you're right. But if you hire them, to me, you then put them in charge. And indications are, at least from Kwesi, he was very open to exploring the market and seeing what they could possibly get for Kirk.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you. I just find it interesting.
Yeah. I wonder if Kwesi and O'Connell looked at this rookie class and said, you know what, we don't see the guy there.
Yep. Totally see that.
And next year we feel like we can find a guy. But you're not going to have Cousins have a $45 million cap hit, right? I was thinking let it play out and then
right.
So I think the more likely scenario is draft a guy next year, have him have a redshirt season, and then you turn it over to him in 2024.
Right, but why not then get as much draft capital right now as possible to build up for that? And I will say this, it wasn't perfect. It was far from perfect, but as far as bridge quarterbacks go, 2008, Gus Frerotte played a lot of that year. We covered it, and it was not a disaster. Like, you could have gotten through going through this case by case, right?
Yeah.
T-Jack he was not good. Yeah. Ponder was a disaster. McNabb was at the end out of shape. I mean, he bamboozled them. He robbed them blind.
The Josh Freeman thing was
Josh Freeman thing was their fault and was just was on every level stupid. So like when you went with a true bridge guy in Gus or heck in Case, it worked. So I think their fear is the fear of incompetent executives, which is why you just fired your previous executive and coach.
Yeah. But
I'm trying to rationalize what they're thinking.
It is, Judd, and I think it's probably just their fans, right? They like being in the mix for a playoff spot, and it's like at some point you're going to have to reset at that position, right?
Yes.
And it's like they just don't want to do it. And I think they're being really miscalculated how close they are when you factor in the defense. I mean, they probably look at it as, and I'm just guessing here, they were in all these games last year and they were kick away from here and a missed field goal there and this and that. And you got Justin Jefferson and a quarterback that throws for a lot of yards and Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen and Irv Smith's coming back. And, but that defense and the 53 and that interior line,
Yeah.
It keeps pulling me back to saying, are you really as close as you think you are from being and what is super competitive? I would like to sit down with Mark. Like, what is the definition in your mind? What is super competitive?
Division title, playoff run? I don't know. It's good.
Yeah,
it's a great question.
I mean, there's a lot of ambiguity. You say it in there because it's
ambiguity.
It's super competitive. Hey, you're a legitimate. You expect this team to be a legitimate player in the playoffs, or just you're on the fringe of the playoffs and you're having meaningful games in December. I mean, I just feel like the roster is not. They're not taking a realistic view of that defense and the roster and how close they are.
Which is why I completely agreed with the decision to jettison Spielman and Zimmer. And I had no problem with that. And I thought that the third piece would be Kirk and that they took their chance. And look, you know what? I'm guilty of what the Wilfs are doing, but I was guilty of that this year. I really thought that the 2021 team was going to be competitive. Like they were going to run things back largely, add some pieces and be competitive. And then they lost these close games. But Chip, in all sports that we have covered, you lose a couple close games, that's tough. Like that's too bad. You lose a lot of them and you're just not that good.
That's
like you're literally trying to convince yourself that it at some point in time, defeats by 7 points or 17 points or 3, they're not mirages.
Yeah.
They speak to who you are.
Exactly. And you can get fooled by we were close and we were in them.
Right.
But you didn't win them.
Right. Well, and the Cardinals game. So let's take that because that's the poster child, right? If you don't miss that kick, you win the game, which is very true. All right. But do you guys recall was it the 4th down pass that Kyler Murray completed against your defense, which was an nice play
against Mackenzie Alexander, right?
Yeah, but that's an inexcusable that lost you the football game.
Yeah.
You didn't lose solely because your kicker choked. That didn't help. Yeah. But you lost because
you weren't good enough in the secondary.
Exactly. That's why you lost that game. Cleveland, guess what? Your offense, quarterback were horse bleep. Mm-hmm. Like Baker had a terrible day. I believe the Vikings scored on their scripted first drive, and then they couldn't score.
Yeah.
So that's not that loss was so close. No, that's a loss. That was a bad loss. San Francisco, your quarterback throws a pick. He completely goes into a shell. So this is not all of these, the games were so close and you played well. No, actually I can find reasons outside of the score or one play. Yeah. That Cardinals game should have never come down to your kicker.
No. And that's the thing, but they're, by the approach they're taking, they're basically saying this was a Zimmer problem. And a Spielman problem, but more a Zimmer problem.
Mike is now being blamed for everything that went wrong.
Yeah, and so
much to his chagrin.
So I've heard.
I hear he's been very active on the text threads down at the ranch. M and F are wearing out on Mike's keyboard.
Yes, and so I thought it was going to be a reset. Or this was the opportunity for a big time reset, but the Wilfs and maybe Andrew Miller and whoever is calling the shots with Kwesi feel differently, and maybe they'll be proven right. Maybe
but how?
But with that defense,
that's my question. With the defense,
I think they'll be good offensively. I think they're going to be good, right? I mean,
well, I do think if they sign J.C. Treader. Mm-hmm. Okay, then I think that the line, the interior of the line still concerns me because, you're not going to change Kirk, and O'Connell can help him. I have no question about that. But Kirk Cousins needs protection from the interior line. Interior defensive lines now, Chip, are really good. So I will say this: my thought that the offense can simply outscore teams will I won't be convinced until you could say, okay, we're playing the Bears, the Packers, and we know that we can block their tackles.
Yeah, and that's
Their
yeah
defensive tackles.
because they I mean too much of the interior of that line just collapse and just
Garrett Bradbury just gets forklifted.
It's sabotage.
You can't fix that.
Where did they finish in scoring? 12th?
Yeah, I think that's right.
12th?
Right, Dex?
Let's be honest. This should be a top 10 scoring offense. It just should.
100%.
I mean, you can't have that skill position in a veteran quarterback and not. So I think it just with a philosophy change and offensive guy, and I mean, it just stands to reason this should be a top 10 scoring offense. So that's going to help. They're going to be better offensively.
Yep.
I think. If they do shore up that interior, but John, they were so bad defensively.
Right. Like what would you say right now if I told you that because of O'Connell and the changes he is going to make, that they were going to be top 10? How high do you think that they need to be with where it looks like their defense is trending from a personnel perspective?
5 to 7.
I'd say top 5.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd say you're going to just have to legit outscore teams.
You're going, because particularly if Hunter's not here.
Oh yeah,
I don't know what to tell you. I just don't see where they're improving the defense. The secondary is a mess right now.
Well, it's non-existent. You got Harrison Smith, Cam
Harrison
Dantzler, Cam Bynum at the other safety, I guess.
Yeah,
but who's your corners?
Who's your corners?
Chris Boyd. 13 years in Catholic school.
That's right.
That's right. Chris Boyd.
Yeah.
Stations of the Cross or something.
Go
pray a rosary. I mean, I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah. And I just don't know that you have the money to really go.
No, you probably don't.
The height. So you're counting on a lot of what we've seen in the past, like the veterans that are a little bit over the hill that are going to, come on a relatively modest deal, and young guys.
Yep.
So,
well, of course, you can watch the team as the Vikings score points. They pile on the points in 2022 on a TCL TV because you can enjoy more. And we, of course, appreciate the folks at TCL sponsoring Purple Daily, Purple After Dark, Purple Access. And let's see, while you're watching the Vikings score points and hemorrhage points too, what will you be drinking? Chip, if you were sitting at home watching your club, like the Vols, when you watch the Vols, and certainly in the last few years before this, it was tough. What can of beer did you like to have by your side to take the edge off a bit as the Vols got destroyed?
I drowned my frustration in Furious. Surly Furious.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Exactly right. You know why? It's the perfect beer. It's the perfect beer, win or lose for you. Your team might stink, but your beer is the best in town. Surly, and in particular, as Chip Scoggins just said, Surly Furious. Last question. What would have to happen in the next couple of days for you to feel like you're seeing a direction? So like right now, I think we both agree we don't really get the direction. Yeah. What would you need to see? And I mean, we can't wave a magic wand and clear up their salary cap. So what would you need to see transpire here for you to say, at least I might not agree with it, but I sort of get it?
Danielle Hunter back in a long-term deal, and a cornerback and an interior offensive lineman. Then you could say, okay, the super competitive, we can still argue like what that means, but at least they're trending towards improving areas that absolutely have to be addressed. And so if you have those, a cornerback, Hunter back, and an interior offensive lineman, a center, then I think you'd feel better about where they're going.
If Hunter's not back, if he gets dealt, I think there's going to be no question in our minds that there are 100% for sure different factions doing different things. That's the only logical conclusion that I can come to. You
cannot tell me you're going to trade Danielle Hunter and you're going to be super competitive.
Right.
That's not. Then why sign Kirk Cousins?
Well, and just to be clear, what makes no sense to me is if you end up having to trade Hunter, then bringing Cousins back made no sense at all.
Made no sense. Correct. I mean,
That would be akin to trading Jefferson and saying, you'll be fine without him. Like there are certain, there's certain pieces of this team that are absolutely key. And Danielle Hunter is one. I'm sorry. I mean, he just is. And I know he's been hurt. If it was an extension of the neck, like if he had injured the neck, I might be like, I'm probably out on this.
Yes.
But doctors say, look, these are different things. They're fluky. He's going to be fine. And if he ends up, and you know what? I'd love for them to get a 2023 first round pick. That being said, what you just said makes way more sense, which is there's no way that you could be super competitive if you, for any price, jettison your best defensive player and arguably your best player on the team. So,
yeah, he's in your top 2.
Yes, I agree completely. All right, Chipscoggins, we will talk to you next week. Until then, take care, have fun, and drink plenty of Surly Furious as you watch the NCAA basketball tournament. Talk to you later, man.
All right, boys.
Bye-bye.